Stress is not going to kill anyone. What's going to kill people is the lack of recovery from stress.
This week's guest is certainly going to help you reset, refresh, and reshape your thinking around your health and well-being. As a registered nurse with a past career in the Royal Australian Air Force, she shares her story as my friend and this week's guest, Michele Scherr, shares her knowledge, insights, and reflections.
Often we equivalate value to what we can give to others. That's a bit of a trip hazard because we can't always give. Sometimes we need to be able to receive.
She was led on a path to become a health and wellbeing coach, stress biohacking specialist, author, and as you'll hear in the episode, someone who's unlocked the secrets and power of understanding our own epigenetics.
The system doesn't set us up for thriving. The system sets us up to be okay. You actually have to do more to deal with this primitive body in a technologically advanced society.
Michele, welcome to Scherr.
Hi, Steve. So very, very pleased to be here. How are you today?
I am fantastic. It's
Awesome.
a beautiful day. The sky is blue and we're alive. So that's a good start.
That's an excellent start. Absolutely excellent start. I was just thinking when I was making a cup of coffee, getting ready to come on, I was just thinking about the first time I met you, and I don't know if you remember this, but hubby and I had come up from Canberra and we had this one day and we were looking for houses. And I think we went to 12 open homes or something like that that day. And you showed us through one. And I remember you because you were so genuine. And you were just
Thank
like,
you.
look, I'm not sure that this fits your needs, but come and have a look so you can, judge what else is on the market. And
Yep.
and you were right, it didn't fit our needs, but you were so lovely and so genuine, and it was just like, yeah, okay. If you had have had
Oh,
the house we were after, we would have bought from you.
that's very nice. Very nice. I was actually trying to think, when did I first meet Michele? And obviously, SRG, we connected through SRG
Through
and
the
running
runners
and
group,
everything
yep.
like that. But now you've said it, I can remember. That's right. We met on that day. So
Yeah.
amazing. And
I even remember where the house is, Steve.
really?
Yeah. So it's up behind the IGA in Springfield. There was a house up that street up the top there.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah.
It was a while
I
ago.
don't know if my memory is usually pretty good, but I don't know if it's that good. But
Yeah.
now, Michele, you've got a great story. You're obviously making some great impact with your clients and in the world at the moment. You've kind of unpacked a lot of things. You've kind of realized a lot of things. So love to tap into that today in the episode and kind of share some of that. So share some of the reflections, some of the insights with listeners. But can you give us a snapshot of, what's your story?
Oh, wow. A snapshot. I love how you said a snapshot. I don't know if it can be a snapshot. So I grew up in North Queensland, and I was one of those kids that was always an overachiever. And then I got to the end of school and I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I'd always had this bent for health and health. And I decided early on I didn't want to be a doctor because you had to study for the rest of your life. That was a big, boom, boom. Doesn't matter what you do, you're learning for the rest of your life. So I decided to become a nurse. And so I went through hospital training to become an enrolled nurse. And I always kind of knew that, I wanted more. So when the opportunity came and we were living in Southeast Queensland, I went to university. And during that time, my marriage broke down. I was in second year and I was just like, oh my gosh, how the heck am I going to raise 2 children, pay for university because and go to work and shift work and all of that sort of thing, 2 young kids. So my brother and a good friend of mine had been through the undergrad system through Navy. They'd both been through Navy. And so I had a look into it and they were sponsoring, sorry, my video has froze for whatever reason. Oh, it's done and come back. So they'd been through the undergrad scheme with Navy, and I had a look into it, and Air Force was also offering for nursing graduates or for nursing undergraduates. So I joined Air Force. And from there, I served for almost 20 years, and towards the end, I was discharged with some medical issues. So I was a medical discharge after serving in a few war zones. And that really started, like, it had to happen. It had to happen because it was almost like I'd had these nudges from the universe of, Michele, you're not doing yourself any favors here, you need to get out. And so I'd come down with an autoimmune disorder. And then a couple of years, I just kind of got back to full-time work from there. And I was sent overseas on a mission to bring back a fellow from coming out of Iraq, and I got hit by a car. And then I just recovered from that, and I deployed again to Afghanistan and ended up with a really good case of post-traumatic stress disorder and depression that came along with that. So, three strikes, and I managed to hide in Air Force for a number of years of kind of, it'll be okay, I can do my job. And I was finally kind of caught, and they said no more. So I was medically discharged, and that started me on the journey that I've been on for the last 7 years of really finding out a heck of a lot about myself, about social conditioning, about how the world really works when you sit and you listen to your own inner knowledge, your own inner knowing. It's opened up a lot of relationships, I think, knowledge, and stuff that I love to share with the world. Is that a snapshot?
So talk to me about, obviously, all the sliding doors in your story, and you've touched on a number of them there. Even the 3 instances that it was kind of 3 strikes, kind of like the universe kind of telling you and kind of pushing you in a different direction. Talk to me about the resilience that you've got from those elements that have kind of been in your story.
So what were the gifts from those elements?
Yeah. So what's the resilience? Like, talk to me about, what you learned about resilience moving through those times, even from being a single mum, having to pay for uni, then being in the defense, obviously you just made it happen.
Absolutely. One of the things I've learned, and this is quite a recent learning, and reflecting back, I remember being told that I was just not resilient enough in my defense days, because I felt like I was floundering. And I kept saying to people, I can't take on anymore. But then the job would be even bigger. And we need you to do this, and we need you to do that. And my pride and my sense of responsibility was push through. You've got the smarts, just push through. And so a few things used to really get my goat, if you will, when I was told to work smarter, not harder. And I was like, when you stop giving me 3 full-time positions, I might be able to do that. And also, one of the things that really struck home was when I was told I wasn't resilient enough. And one of the things I've learned, of the many things I've learned, is resilience is like a muscle. And so when you're training, and I'm sure that lots of listeners will identify with this, you go to the gym, you overwork a muscle to make it stronger, right? But then you've got to relax it. You've got to let it develop. You've got to let it mend. What I found in my experience was I had no time to mend. So I talk about this now with stress is that, and it is a stress. So even when you go to the gym and you work out and you stress your muscles to make them stronger, when you stress is not going to kill anyone. What's going to kill people is the lack of recovery from stress. When stress happens to your body goes in, a number of coping mechanisms kick in. So you have that rush of adrenaline, all the things that we identify with being stressed, start breathing more quickly, the rush of adrenaline, the eyes widen, your pupils widen, all of that sort of thing. There's there's a cascade of things that happen within the body. We're designed to then, once the stress is over, everything goes back to normal. However, today's lifestyle is there's something else on the horizon. You finish with one stress, it's something else on the horizon. There's no recovery time. And it's that recovery that gives us a lot of disease and illness, or the lack thereof. A lack of recovery gives us disease and illness. And I know you work with a number of your mentors, and I'm pretty sure you understand a lot of this, Steve, in terms of men's mental health. And I know November is Men's Mental Health Month. And I think it's really important for everyone to understand, and really crucial for men to understand, that when it comes to stress, like I said, it's not the stress that's going to kill you, it's a lack of recovery. And it's finding the ways that are best for you to recover from stress, not what society says you should do. Does that kind of resonate with you?
It does. Yeah, it's interesting as well because, you touch on an interesting thing. If we go back 20, 30 years ago, there wasn't as much pressure or stress. There wasn't as much, we've got digital devices now. Everything's going on, right? So, and I was talking about it the other day with someone, and we were talking about, because someone said society at the moment is just like broken. And I said, it's like an earthquake, like a tremor going through society. You've got, separations, breakups, mental breakdowns, burnout, depression, anxiety, stress, fatigue, all these things happening, right?
Isolation.
And everyone you talk to, they're all going through it. And it's interesting because if we go back 20 or 30 years ago, you'd have one parent at home, one parent at work. Now we've lifted society from a point where we didn't have probably as much we had to pay for, as in, like now I was even talking to my brother the other day about people getting braces, right? Only the rich kids, they used to say, when I was younger, only the rich kids would get braces, but now so many kids get braces, and, there's more private school, and there's more, kind of, things that need to be, I suppose, the expectations in life, right? So now you've got most of the time both parents working 150%, and then they both have to come home, and they have to then be parents, and then they have to be partners, and then they have to be friends and family members. And then it's like, where's the me time, and then if you have me time, you feel guilty because the other partner doesn't get me time. And there's this never ending pressure. You don't have that recovery, right? So obviously I've interviewed some people on the podcast from military, from first responders. I interviewed a guy the other day who worked with the Australian Federal Police, and we were talking about the pressure in that. But, I think people are even just living their normal lives now. And when I say normal, but when I say, a 9-to-5 job and trying to hold things together, and kids each morning, kids at night, those kind of things, I think almost people are coming through with similar PTSD and hitting that midlife and kind of going, who am I? What am I doing? What's my purpose? I don't know how long I can do this. I need to know more about myself. What is my identity? Because, for me, and I've shared before, my identity was linked to 15 to 20 years in real estate. It was like, hang on, I'm a real estate agent. Well, hang on. no, that was a role that I did, but my ego, my purpose and everything was all linked to that. But I hadn't kind of unlocked that the deeper purpose and the deeper impact that I had on the world was not my role.
Yeah. I totally identify with that because when I came out of defense, it was like, okay, I can't be a clinical nurse anymore because that was something that I really enjoyed was emergency nursing because of the triggers. Like until about a month ago, just walking into a doctor's surgery would have me so heightened, I'd be hyperventilating. And this is coming from someone who I lived and breathed health for so many years. And all of a sudden, I'm terrified to go and speak to someone about my health. But I would go and do it and I'd be short of breath and I'd be like, okay, just focus. Because a lot of my PTSD triggers were around medical scenarios. And that was quite difficult. And this is the first time I'm really actually speaking about this, of how difficult it is or it has been for me to ask for medical assistance or ask for help. Because anytime I've had to, like if I've had to have a procedure or something like that, even a day procedure, and sitting in the pre-anesthetic room or lying in the pre-anesthetic room, I would just be crying and stiff and so hypervigilant. And yeah, it was incredibly traumatizing for me. And I'm just like, I'm an emergency nurse. I've had my hands in places you don't want to know. And I've seen things that, people shouldn't see. And here I am terrified of sitting in an Australian waiting room or hospital or, that sort of thing. So, yeah, it's very, very interesting what you say because when I came out of defense and I couldn't be a nurse and I was no longer a military officer, I really hit the skids of, well, what sort of value do I have? And I went really deep into I have no value, I have no worth. And so this has been a 7-year journey of working through that. And I'm now getting to, every time I think, I actually know my value and I know my worth, something else will happen and I'll go, oh, now I know my value and I know no. And then something else will happen. And it's just that cascade of experiences to go, no, I actually do have value. I have something to contribute. And often we equivalate value to what we can give to others. And I think that's a bit of a trip hazard because we can't always give. Sometimes we need to be able to receive. And yeah, that thought, that belief of my value is linked to what I can do for others, what I can give to others. That can certainly trip you up.
Yeah. And I think it's about replacing when you come from an industry or you come from a role, I think it's actually about replacing. So, if I link myself, I would, obviously really love helping people and matching people to property and seeing how excited they were when they were moving into a property or they were selling a property. So my passion and purpose was linked to that.
Yeah.
And obviously also behind that, very much linked to community and how we could actually affect not just the local community, but also the global community with doing projects in Bali and all those kind of things. So it's really about when you go through a role, you've kind of got to go, okay, on my next path, on my next journey, what I'm shifting into, I need to switch from, okay, I'm having these emotions, I'm having these reactions, but what on my next path and what my next journey, am I actually going to be able to replicate how I feel? Because you need that passion and purpose. Yes, it changes, but you need to work out what is going to make me feel good. So through my burnout, it was interesting. One of the key things that I really focus on now is I love doing, just spontaneous things or little acts of service for people that make me feel good. That's kind of something that really connects with me. I also feel accomplished. So some of these kind of dopamine kind of injections, I had to learn how I could do that. So, it was about connecting with nature, going and jumping in a waterfall. It might be mowing someone's lawn. It might be just doing the smallest of tasks, but it made me feel good. And I still do that now. If I'm not feeling great, I'll be like, what can I do for someone else to make me feel good? Or what can I do that's actually going to make me feel like I'm accomplished? Because when you're in a role, when you're in an industry, and you would have been the same, in that health section, is you'd be helping people in a kind of a war-torn zone, and you'd be like, wow, I saved that person's life today, right? And then you're coming back to, life where you're not kind of saving people's lives every day, and you kind of like, you would have had to have shifted from, okay, I'm saving someone's life, but then you're coming back and I'm doing a load of washing, or I'm cleaning the house, or I'm whatever it is, right? It's these little things that you would have had to have attached accomplishment to, but also drop the comparison of the weight of those accomplishments as well.
Yeah. Absolutely agree. Absolutely agree. It's addictive. It's absolutely addictive. Having that influence in other people's lives is addictive. And for me, the biggest joy I got until I finished what kind of the full-on nursing part of my journey, the biggest joy I got was when someone went, thank you. Thank you for helping me. Thank you for helping me understand. Thank you for helping me to, I don't know, get to the toilet. Thank you for helping me to clean up, whatever it was. Or, people, when I dealt with people in an emergency perspective, it's the worst day of their life, potentially. And being able to smooth that for them and help them to understand, and being that kind of calming energy for them, I got so much joy out of that. Absolutely got so much joy out of that. And so when you talk about identity and what happens when I can't do that anymore, because I've spent a lifetime, like I was in my mid-40s at that point, and I'd spent a lifetime of doing that for others. And now that's been taken away. What the heck, So that's when I joined Springfield Runners Group, and I thought, okay, well, maybe I'll get to meet people. Maybe I can be of service. So I became a memberships officer, so I could, get to meet people and I could help them out and that sort of thing. And then, I was what we call socially supported in the group. We were talking about being socially supported into running the marathon in 2019. But because of injuries that I picked up and that sort of thing, I needed to do it a little bit differently to the way the runners group were doing it. So I'd still join in with them. I was doing the beginner, like I was running the running sessions for the beginners program. I was really in and working a lot, being of service a lot, and it gave me so much joy. And then my hubby got an offer to move to Canberra and do a job until he reached compulsory retirement age. And we went, oh, another adventure. So, just in time for COVID to hit and all the lockdowns. Yeah, all of that sort of stuff. But it was actually great, like in terms of progression, because it allowed me time to reflect on what was important to me. So I knew that serving others was important to me. And it might sound really obvious. I'm a nurse, so serving others must have been important to me. But it really became obvious to me how important that was. So, and helping others to see the best in themselves. And so I went through a few iterations when we were living in Canberra for the 2.5 years. I went through a few iterations of looking at how I could mentor other women to see their strengths, to help them. We talked about resilience to start with, to help them develop their resilience, to help them see their options, to help them go, I don't have to be stuck in this situation. I have choices. And those choices might take a little bit of work. They might take a lot of work, but I have choices. And it's up to me to make those decisions. So I went from there to, I met this lady when I was networking who started talking to me about the hormones that my body is most receptive to. Like, we went out for brunch, and she said, and we were talking about, you like to eat, at this time because your body is very susceptible and very sensitive to serotonin, and it has this effect on your body and that effect on your mind, and this is important and that is important to you. And I was just kind of like, we've just chatted for 5 minutes. How the heck do you know so much about me? And it really had me intrigued. So she started talking to me about what she did in this epigenetic coaching, health coaching. And I was just like, it was like everything just went clunk. Perfect. Because I have a real drive for health, biology, healthcare, and I can know so much about somebody by, as it turns out, we do measurements, how the skull is developed, the jaw, the neck. We measure 17 parts of the body and put this information into some AI, and it does all the data comparison, and it looks at ratios, which it's all evidence-based, medical and scientifically evidence-based, of, look at the ratio of the pointer finger and the ring finger, and if you've got this sort of ratio, you've had your body is very sensitive to testosterone and all of these other ratios. And I was just like, wow, geek out, man. And absolutely loved it. So that has started my journey to where I am now. And doing the epigenetic health and wellbeing coaching. And really, I really specialize in stress, mainly because people think that stress is a mental thing. Oh, I've got too much on, I'm stressed. What they don't appreciate, or what they don't seem to really know, is how it puts their bodies out of whack, how it puts their normal functioning out of whack. And so it's not just a mental thing, it's actually a physical thing as well. So you were talking about before how in your journey, about getting community and walking in nature and, doing things on the spur of the moment. For some people to start to settle their alertness, their vigilance, their sympathetic nervous system drive, they actually need a clear, comfortable spaces around them. And that will start to bring their sympathetic nervous system down. For some people, it's about having, you talk about being dopamine driven. For some people, the first thing for their health and wellbeing to be in alignment, they have to have a purpose. And that's their priority. But for other people, their priority is socially and social circumstances and being able to nurture. For other people, they have to have fun in what they're doing for their body. That's the priority for their body. And then for other people, there's only one group of people that movement is the first priority for their bodies to be healthy. Only one group of people. And yet when you talk to people about health, the first thing they go to is, I've got to go to the gym and I've got to go on a diet. No, it's not necessarily that easy. You have to create the right environment. Your body has to be in the right environment so that it can deal with the calories in, calories out. Yeah. Sure, everything will work for a short period of time. If you go and do a 6-week gym challenge or a 12-week gym challenge, yes, that's going to work for that period of time, but it's not sustainable. So,
and it's interesting as well, because if we're if you're in the middle of a bush hiking, if you're at the beach, if you're in the city, if you're in the country, we all feel differently. And, some people will say, oh, I'm a country girl. Or some people will say, I'm a beach person or whatever it is, right? And everyone feels different in different environments, and they're attached and they're drawn to those environments. So for me, I love going out on a hike, but when we've got a place, in the suburbs, and then we've also got a place by the beach, and I feel completely different when I'm near the beach, right? And that's why my studio, I've moved near to the beach, because I'm like, I feel in alignment. I don't feel in alignment in the suburbs. And it's not like, being with my family and everything like that isn't in alignment, but it just doesn't feel right for me. So I moved the studio closer to the beach, because I knew that I would have to come down here at least 2 or 3 nights a week, and I would actually have to sit and watch the sun come up, walk on the beach, and it's just a completely different environment. So for me, that's what aligns with me.
That is
Michelle, I wanted to ask you,
that's
we're talking.
fantastic, Steve. I just want to praise you on that part, because knowing that will be helping your health incredibly.
Yeah.
That's
And
awesome.
mental, emotional, physical, completely.
Spiritual.
Like the other day, I've got a bike here. I just jumped on the bike and I just went riding along the foreshore there, and the wind and the smell of the sea air. And it was just fantastic. And, it's about, and this is one of the key things that I work on from a mental health perspective, and with people that I work on, coaching clients, people in mental health first aid courses. And I talk about having these tools to shift yourself. So if you're not feeling good, you've got to kind of reach into your tool bag to kind of go, what ignites me? What makes me feel good? What changes my environment to actually change how I'm feeling, not just mentally, but emotionally, and physically as well. So I have learned that. But as you've kind of touched on it as well, over the last 7 years of the reflection and the awareness that you've gone through, it hasn't been easy. I shared on social media yesterday on my story, talking about how self-reflection is really hard, and I shared the video of the bear that, is walking through the woods and sees the mirror, and he sees himself in the mirror, and he's like, oh, and he gets rid of the mirror and smashes the mirror onto the floor, and it's such a true representation of the work that you have to go through to self-reflect and go deeper and look in a mirror and actually stop blaming people, stop blaming environments, stop blaming your circumstances, stop blaming your past trauma, stop blaming all these things, and actually looking at yourself in the mirror and going, I am who I am. I need to find out more about how I work, what I eat, what I do, how it makes me feel. For me now, like I stopped alcohol for about 6 months, and I've never been a big drinker. But it's interesting, I changed my relationship with alcohol by stopping for 6 months. Now I have, a glass of wine, or I'll have a drink, but I'm starting to work out even more. I didn't feel great. Even though I only had a couple of drinks, I don't feel great the next morning, right? But then I might have a glass of wine and I might go, that doesn't make me feel too bad, right? So it's getting to know what makes you kind of, I suppose, feel good and what doesn't, and then kind of making the decision on your own to stop something or to reduce something. And just learning more and more and more and more. And as I always say, we're going to live and we're going to die a work in progress, right? We're always learning, we're always growing, we're always expanding.
Absolutely.
And that, for some people, that's daunting. For me, I find that exciting.
Yeah.
Like learning more about yourself and how you work and how you can kind of really kind of supercharge and kind of keep working out your superpower is so exciting, because when you learn something and you go, oh, wow. Oh,
Yeah.
I've kind of hacked, and for you, like obviously the biohacking and everything like that, right? I've got my Whoop band, and that's been a massive thing from a biometric perspective, and it's also shown me that recovery isn't just a physical thing. So if you just sleep, I can get a great night's sleep and I'll look at my recovery and I'll be like, my recovery is going to be good today. And then I'm like, oh, it's at 46%. Why is it at 46%? And then I'll go, what did I eat? What did I drink? What,
Yes.
how was my stress levels, right?
Yes.
And it's interesting. I've also worked out that sometimes when I push myself physically
Mm.
and I push myself a little bit more than I should, sometimes it actually, the next day, my recovery is better. And I
Yes.
go, well, that's interesting. Whereas you would think, oh, I'm going to pay
Pump
for that tomorrow. But the body actually is working that you've pushed it a little bit more, but you've actually improved things. It's the body is an amazing thing.
Absolutely.
Michelle, I wanted to ask you, you mentioned, and obviously I've seen you do a lot of work with the epigenetics. For those listening that don't know what epigenetics is, can you explain that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, epigenetics is simply the effects on your body. So whether it's something you're putting into your body or something around your body, so environmental. So it could be weather, could be humidity, it could be people around you, it could be thoughts that you're exposed to, social expectations, that sort of thing, that have the ability to um, trigger your DNA to express or not express, so turn it on or off in simple terms, and in what combinations. So if you think that you start off being as conceived as a fetus, and your body has a certain design depending upon where the energy went when it was first the cells were first multiplying and becoming a fetus. So you've got a certain design. But then you start to be exposed to things like what your mum's eating, the air that your mum's breathing, the noise, the surrounds that your mum's in. And this is all in the uterus. And then you're born and it's cold and bright lights maybe, or, whatever environment you're born into. And then you start being your body and mind is being affected by everything external to you and everything internal to you. So where you start as a fetus, so this is the nature nurture thing, if you want to put it in really basic terms. So you've got nature, how you were designed, and then you've got the nurture, all the influences that bring you to who you are today. So even after this conversation, Steve, your genetic expression is going to be a little bit different to your genetic expression before we started this conversation, because you've been exposed to my ideas and my tone of voice and all of that sort of thing. So it's going to change expression, maybe a little bit, maybe a lot, depending on. So if we think about genetic expression, to give some examples. So long-term genetic expression via hormones, so long-term expression in the body, things we might see is our height, for example, the color of our eyes, how the shape of our body. So whether we've got apple, triangle, pear, square, whatever, rather than use the technical terms. So the shape of our body, the shape of our heads, the shape of our ears, all of that sort of things, long-term genetic expression. Short-term genetic expression could be, say, for instance, if you've got someone who's allergic to cats. They walk into a room and there's been cats in the room, cat hair, and they start to sneeze. So that's a short-term genetic expression, because when they walk out of the room, they can start to breathe again.
Yep.
So some things will have long-term, some things will have short-term, and there's a whole range of influences in between. But essentially that combination of all of those exposures brings you to who you are today. And what I work with is through the measurements of the body, and we do a health questionnaire as well to get some cultural heritage questions down and that sort of thing, because we know in terms of health risk that Caucasian skin in an Australian sun is going to be at risk for melanoma, right?
Mm.
So, not to say other skin types aren't, but Caucasians in lots of some, yeah, bubble. So, with the measurements and the health risk assessment, we develop a profile. Using the AI, we develop a profile. And from that profile, we can tell what environment really makes your body sing. So for my body, it's about having that bit of humidity, a bit of cool. For somebody else's body, it might be cool and dry. For somebody else's body, it might be hot and dry or hot and humid, for example. And all of these are combinations. So when I talk to someone about it, I'll use a 2D diagram of a circle with all the degrees on it. But realistically, it's all of these traits, all of these tendencies because of the way you've developed and how your genes are expressing. So I start with, okay, this is how you were designed. Let's have a look in your profile and see how your mind works, how you like to think, how you view things. Let's have a look in your profile and see what floats your boat in terms of social part of your lifestyle. Or let's have a look and see what floats your boat in terms of physical, what's really good for your body, what's the best time of day for you to be exercising to get the best gains. I mean, you can exercise anytime you like, but if you're really after gains, let's do it in this period. I can look at, there's a food list and say, well, for your body in the health that you're in right now and the season and where you live in the world, these foods are really good for you. These foods you should avoid. But then the nuance of coaching, I guess, is how do we gradually shift to this? How do we develop the habits to gradually shift to this so your body's singing and you notice? And, so I work with clients and male and female clients. And I think it's actually more difficult for men because there's all these societal norms, particularly the age group that tend to come to me. There's all these societal norms about them being the breadwinner, about them being strong, about them not having emotion, all of that sort of thing, when it's okay, that's fine, but it's just you and me here. I'm going to ask you questions that may be uncomfortable. Have a think about it. Up to you whether you answer or not. I'm not going to make you do anything. But getting back to the program, so with the epigenetics, I know about it's in the profile is all about food, about movement, social, mind, genius, which tells me in the genius section really tells me what lights your fire, what's the best environment to put you in, like from a work situation. So if you've got someone who, say, is an accountant, but and part of their profile is that they really love working with people and they're outgoing and mentoring and all of that sort of thing, putting them in an office where they're isolated and not talking to anyone in all day is going to cause illness. It's going to cause disease. But putting them in a place where they've got lots of people around them, where they're helping juniors, for example, or they're helping other people and they've got that interaction, boom, they're much happier. Life is much happier. So there's the work part, and there's also, I can't remember now, food, movement, mind, genius, social, and environment. So I was talking about environment before. So epigenetics is really looking at, we've seen how you were designed. We can look at you now. We can understand everything, all of the influences you've had to get to here. Now, let's see what's not working for you. Let's celebrate what works for you, and let's see what's not working for you and how we can just massage that, because we've got all this information about you. Let's see how we can massage that for a happier, more joyful life. And that's
So talk to me, Michele, about those that you've coached and helped through this process. Talk to me, what are the changes or what is the impact that they feel to themselves when they start understanding more about their epigenetics?
So one of the things most people will go to food and exercise because that's what's ingrained in us, right? So one of the major things that most people say, I try to um, I try to steer them away unless that's one of their priorities, because each body, each group of bodies has a certain priority to work through those lifestyle priorities that I was just talking about. So for some bodies, we would start at movement. Only for one group of people. There are 6 groups of people, and one group of people we would start with movement. Everybody else would start somewhere else to make sure, okay, how does that sit in your world? How does that apply to you? And when we're working, so if you have someone who shares a similar body type to myself and they're living in chaos, automatically their body is highly strung. Their central nervous system is tight. Their sympathetic nervous system is activated. Might be at a low level, but it's activated. So if we can get to a point where they feel calm and organized within their environment, it's like a big deep breath out and they can
Mm.
relax. So sorry, Steve, I forgot the question. Let's so flow.
No. The question was, what impact have you seen? What's the
Oh,
impact that
impact.
people feel? Yep.
One of the things most people notice straight away is when they start to put these things into practice, their body starts to shed weight. When they start to put things into practice, they find they've got more energy. And for a lot of the women, it's about the mind fog lifts. So, there are quite a number of layers to the system, and what my clients see are the very superficial layers, but there's so much underneath that I'm working with in terms of hormone balance and in terms of environment and lifestyle and all of that sort of thing to massage so that they can start to just relax. So one lady I worked with in a matter of 4 months. Now, we did not focus on diet or exercise for her. What we focused on was her being able to nurture, her being able to feel that she had enough in terms of she's got roof over her head, she's got food on the table, she's got money coming in, there's no bill stress, stuff like that. We worked on that. And because we were working on that, she had some energy. So she started going out for a walk. She noticed a boot camp and she went, I think I'd like to join that boot camp. So she did. And while she was doing that, she didn't feel like eating the way she had been previously. And before we knew it, she'd lost 10 kilos over a matter of 4 months. And we did not focus on food or movement for her. They were just natural progressions because she was feeling better in her body. So another gentleman I had, his outcome was he actually has metastatic melanoma. The outcome he was looking for was being able to hand off some businesses, some charities that he'd set up, so that he, at the beginning of this year, he could get to a point where he was looking after his grandchildren for his daughter. So he got time to spend with his grandchildren. At the time, he was undergoing treatment and he was having a lot of side effects from that treatment. So we worked with him doing simple things like movement of the morning, just simple stretching of the morning for his body was what he needed. Simple stretching, some myofascial release massage, getting the blood flowing, as well as using some supplements that were recommended to me, which are outside of my scope of practice. But we have a board that we take case studies to. So that was recommended. He went on these and hey presto, by the time he'd finished the coaching with me, he was in such a better place. And he had managed to achieve everything he wanted to achieve because for him, the primary was about purpose. What he needed was an ability to be able to focus on his purpose. And so what I did was support him in that, being able to focus on his purpose so that he could achieve and get that dopamine hit, which propelled him forward. So, I mean, they're just two cases that I've worked with, but a lot of, as you were saying earlier, a lot of it is in, wow, I've just pushed through. I've done what I thought I was supposed to do according to society. Grew up, I got married, or I partnered up, I had children, bought a house, did this, did that. Now what? Is this all there is to life? And so I have a number of women who come to me because they kind of go, maybe they've identified that has been making them sick. So whether it's been breast cancer or some other issue, I think that's making me sick. How do I wind this back? How do I know what is good for me and what's not? And so, yeah, I help them work through that as well.
Mm. And we were talking earlier about industries and roles that we have and the pressure in life and the stress in life. And, you hear about it now. They say the biggest killer is stress, because stress causes cancer. It causes, if you read up on stress, it causes heart disease, cancer, all these different things because of the environment that your body doesn't have that recovery, and there's all those elements of stress, the pressure on the brain, the stress and pressure on the organs, and
Yes.
just, how you feel, if you don't recover, if you don't have that downtime. It's like if I jumped in my car today and just went, I'm just going to drive it. I'm not going to service it. I'm not going to fuel it. I'm not going to do all these things. How many Ks would I get? It'll be interesting to work out, right? And I think Hamish and Andy did a thing where they said, I think ages ago, it was like, how far can we drive once the light goes on, right? Like the fuel light, right? And they just drove it, and they wanted to work out how many kilometers they could get out of the car, right? And they did this exercise, right? But I love a good analogy, but I think of that and I go, it's a bit like what some of us do. We kind of go, I'm not feeling quite right. The lights kind of come on, right? But I'm just going to keep going. Why not? I like to live dangerously, right? And we just keep pushing, thinking we'll be okay. We'll be right. Like we're indestructible. We're invincible.
Yes.
And then eventually it conks out. And it's like, well, actually, right back when the light went on, we could have actually pulled into a service station, refueled, checked our oil levels, done all these things, and then we, along the trip, have to get services, check our tires, check all these things so that we've got a better machine that lasts longer.
Yeah.
But people don't see that, and people don't realize that, and they don't accept that our bodies are actually even more crucial, but even, I suppose, deeper when it comes to, like, the human body is a miraculous machine. It's like, it's the more you learn about it, it's more than a car, right? But we treat our body like worse than our cars.
We do. So 2 things I've got for that. Number 1, our bodies are a very primitive design. Okay, very primitive design. We are designed, and you hear it over and over again, we're designed to be hunter-gatherers. And we're living in this advanced technological age, which gives us no downtime. We were designed to be in that primitive hunter-gatherer where, you get a fright, like you happen to come across a lion, you deal with it because your stress comes up, you deal with it, run away, kill the lion, whatever the outcome is, or you die, whatever the outcome is, and then the stress goes away. Today, in this advanced technological environment, we have constant stress, and it's our thoughts. It's not necessarily physical anymore. We have the physical, but we have these thoughts, and you can't run away from those thoughts. So it's really finding what works for the individual. And like even, coming home and, oh, I've got 2 days off. I've worked a full week. I've got 2 days off. That may not be enough time to wind back to get that recovery from the stress. And that's certainly something I found coming home from deployments. I would come home from a deployment, go straight back into being a single parent, and hey presto, here's the full responsibilities. I never had time to process. I never had time to recover. And I didn't know. It was like, oh, I'm going to take, 5 weeks off or 6 weeks off or whatever. But I still stepped straight into another full-time role. And yeah, I didn't know. Now, the second thing I wanted to say to that is also we are very much set up in an acute care medical treatment model. So what I mean by that is we do trauma very well. So when someone has a trauma, they have an accident, whatever, yep, okay, fantastic. However, when it comes to lifestyle, when it comes to chronic illnesses, there are flags all the way along. And you might see them. You'll go to your GP, go to your doctor, go to your healthcare practitioner. But because of the model that we work with today, being that acute care model, we're going to fix the problem right there in front of us, which is a trauma way of looking things. We're going to fix the problem right there in front of us. However, if the problem happens to be you're taking this medication, which over the years is actually going to give you high blood pressure, but, you go to your GP, say, oh, you're on this particular medication, you've got high blood pressure, we'll just put you on another medication. Whoa. And that tends to be the generic model that we go with here in Australia anyway. And I just think the system doesn't set us up for thriving. The system sets us up to be okay. And if you're happy with being okay, bonza. If you want to thrive, you actually have to do more to deal with this primitive body in a technologically advanced society.
Yep. And it's deeper than just prescribing some medication in a box that you take each day, right?
Yeah.
Because some people go to the doctor and the doctor will say, okay, you've got these symptoms. Okay, you've got this. Take this antibiotics or take this medication or take these painkillers, right? It doesn't go, okay, you can take these, but also what you probably need to put into there is probably daily exercise and you need to keep your fluids up and all those kind of things. That's actually reserved a lot of the time for your naturopaths and the people that are working in these deeper level. But also as well, if you look at it, I think last year, because I see a naturopath, they took naturopaths off the Medicare, so you couldn't get a rebate, right? So some of these people that are actually doing some great work know and understanding deeper on blood tests and different things like microbiome, they're actually not subsidized, but those people play a big part and those industries play a big part in how people can kind of unlock some different, they might be, lacking a little bit of vitamin D or some of the little factors. And especially when we get into hormones, I know for me, recently getting my tests, high testosterone, high estrogen, right? Now, it's like, okay, so I'm on a supplement now that is actually kind of dealing with my estrogen. And higher estrogen in a male is actually you kind of get a little bit more fat around your belly and around your love handles, right? So it's about, and then having both high estrogen and high testosterone, then there's different things that's going to kind of how it's going to affect your life, right? So there's so many things, but a GP or a doctor, and no criticism to them, they don't go through this level. And I think a lot of people think, oh, and I talk about it through a mental health perspective. People go to the doctor, and I did the same thing back in 2018. I went to the doctor. They sent me for blood tests. I came back. there was a couple of things that might have needed a little bit of, oh, well, you're a little bit low in this, or your cholesterol's a little bit high here. But it was kind of like, oh, no, you're fine. Send for a heart test. No, you're fine. It doesn't go deeper. And so people walk away from that thinking, well, I'm fine, right? But they're not. Most people that go to the doctor and get their blood tests and everything will say, oh, I'm fine. I've had my health check. I'm good. You're not. There's a deeper level that you have to kind of unlock, and you have to dig into those kind of things.
Yes.
And GPs don't have the level of time and the level of even focus that's needed on that.
Exactly right.
For me, I know if I didn't unlock some of those elements in my journey, very early on, I wanted to be very holistic. And then they're like, you've got to take antidepressants. No, I'm not taking antidepressants. I took an antidepressant. It made me worse. 2 years later, I finally went, okay, I'll go to a psychiatrist. So I went to a psychiatrist, and he said, yep, you were reacting to that, and it made you worse because it was treating the wrong chemical in your brain, right? So he switched me to another antidepressant, which I've been on, and I feel fine. It's stabilized me. It's helped me
Right.
through those depression symptoms, and continues to help me, right? So there's just so many things. And I think so many, like you're talking about epigenetics, there's so many parts. In health, everything plays its part. Your environment, what you eat, the physical activity, your emotional, things like meditation and recovery, yoga. Like, there's so many things. And I suppose what you're talking about is really about, there's all these things, and some of these things are going to be better for you to focus on. Some of them might not be as good for you to focus on, and really kind of unlocking, okay, these are all the things in life that you can do, but where is your focus and where is your energy obviously going to be best spent?
Absolutely. It's almost like I've got a manual of you, whoever you happens to be. I've got your manual, and here are the shortcuts to knowing or narrowing down the options of what will work for you. Now, one question I would pose to you is, how are you supporting your gastrointestinal tract while you're taking the antidepressants? Because
Mm.
that is a major part of signaling to your brain that everything's okay. The signals come from your gut, from your gastrointestinal tract. So if you're, as part of mental health, if you're not treating the gut as well, you're only getting part of the treatment, which comes back to the point of, our system is set up for us to be okay. It's not set up for us to thrive. And it's a
Yep.
systemic issue. I feel for the people that work within the system, because I know they're doing their darndest, and they don't come to work each day to, generally they don't come to work each day to say, how can I be mediocre today? They actually want to make a difference to the people they touch. So, I feel for them. It's the system
Mm.
that's not set up well. If we were set up for holistic medicine, holistic health, there'd be a lot of pharmaceutical companies that would be struggling.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. I always say that. Michele, if there's someone there listening, they've gone, epigenetics, I don't know, I've never heard of this before. Talk to me about someone that's sitting there and they're like, right, I want to know more. I want to kind of unlock this. Talk me through the steps that someone would need to take to kind of head down that journey.
Well, I would suggest the first step is to follow me on social media. Follow me on
Yep.
social media. Have a look at my website and get in touch. Just book in. I have a 15-minute call there that people can book in, and we can have a chat about what's going on for them, and see
Mm.
if I'm the right person to work with them. I don't sell anything in that 15-minute chat. It's just, so tell me what's happening for you. Tell me how that affects you, And I will then let you know at the end of the call if it's something that is within my sphere, or if you need to be looking for someone else, and I'll make a recommendation of who to look for. I'm really happy to talk to people about epigenetics and talk to people about how this can be done differently. And really, I think this has been 15, 20 years in the making. The processes that I'm using now have been 15, 20 years in the making. And as with a lot of medical stuff, it takes a long time to really get a grab. And realistically, this is about people taking action for themselves. So the people I work with are the people that are ready to take action for themselves, who are not going to hide behind excuses of, oh, it's too hard for me to do this, or it's too hard for me to fit that in. The people I work with go, okay, I need to do this. So what am I going to drop out? What doesn't serve me in my schedule, or what doesn't serve me in my life? I'm actually just going to get rid of that, because I know that this is going to serve me. And in serving me, it means I'm healthier. It means I had more well-being. And it means I can then provide more service to those around me. So I can provide more love, more fun, more connection, all of those things. So whether it's being in the community is important to them, or just being with the ones they love and being able to be present with the ones they love, whatever's important to them, it can get them there.
Yeah, awesome. And I'm even just sitting here listening to it, I'm like, you and I have got to catch up, because I want to learn more about it as well, and how elements of that can kind of help my journey moving forward as I continue to kind of unpack and kind of discover the best version of me. So that sounds pretty exciting.
Yeah, awesome. I'd love to, Steve. Love to.
That's awesome. Michele, I wanted to ask you, in life, how has success changed for you from, going through your career to what success is for you today? How has it changed?
This is a really important question, Steve, because I think we need to get away from thinking that success is all about being a multimillionaire, having boats and luxury houses and, all of that sort of thing. I think we really need to funnel down to what's important to me. And if I achieve that and work on that, that's success. So for me, success is kind of, for me, it's about being comfortable and having pleasure. And I share that with a lot of people who have the same body type as I do, health type as I do. But what that means to me is um, I like surroundings that I find pleasurable and comfortable. So we've now moved to Hervey Bay, and where we're living is a half-acre block, and it's just beautiful. Got the hedges, the grass, the greenery, the flowers, the nature. We're close to the beach, just a walk from the beach. We've got a beautiful house. And to me, that's comfortable and pleasurable. However, success for me is about family and about connections. So whilst I enjoy where I live and it's very important to my body, it means that I can be there for the ones I love. To me, success is about coming through life together and having that enjoyment along the way.
Yeah, beautiful. And who would you say throughout your life's been your greatest teacher?
Oh, wow. I've had a number of teachers, number of mentors. Probably the person who has taught me the most would have to be my husband. So we've definitely been through a lot of ups and downs. So we got together after I came back from Afghanistan. So I've had, quite the journey of ups and downs coming back. And he's been there supporting me with that unconditional love that I didn't think I'd felt, that unconditional love and acceptance before. And he gave that to me, which has allowed me to blossom. And I think, every day
Yeah.
I think I'm a better person because of that interaction with my hubby.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And Michelle, if you cast your mind forward and you caught up with your 100-year-old self, your 100-year-old Michelle, what do you think she would say to you?
Good choices,
Hmm.
because she's going to be having a ball. She's going to be having a ball. She's going to be smiling and joyful and have movement. Not going to be stuck in a chair. She's going to have people around her who she loves and they love her. And so at this point, looking back, talking to me today, she'd be saying good choices.
Yeah, that's awesome. Now, as we mentioned and I talk about, we're always learning and we're always growing, and you're a big kind of advocate for that as well. What's one thing that you haven't fully understood about yourself, and what's your next step of growth?
Cool. So, Steve, I've just been the company that I did training with have multiple arms, and one of them are healing retreats. And I've just been to one of the healing retreats as a guest. And one of the things that highlighted for me was I thought I was doing really well. I really did. Going in, coming out, I realized, man, I have just been surviving. Even though I thought I was doing really well, I've just been surviving. Each day was about making sure I didn't slip down into the PTSD depression hole. And I felt
Uh-huh.
like each day I was at a precipice, and the day was about making sure I didn't slip and fall down.
Yep.
Coming out of that, where I dealt with a lot of safety issues, and I dealt with a lot of trust issues, emotional blocks, and what have you, and a lot of inner child work. So coming through the other end of it, amongst other therapies, I don't have that now. I don't even know where the cliffside is. It's so far like it's not on my horizon. And it's
Yep.
wonderful because I feel joy now. Whereas before I
Mm.
felt okay.
Oh,
Now I feel joy. I feel love. I want to send this love to everyone in the world type thing. But I feel like all of this is emanating from me now that I can feel. Whereas previously I had a semblance of feeling. Now the passion is there. It's just so one of the things that I'm learning about is how deeply ingrained social conditioning has been for me. And even when we were doing the emotional release work, I found it incredibly difficult to release those emotions because it's not acceptable. It's not acceptable for me to yell and scream and cry and all of that sort of thing. I need to hold it together.
mm.
And then it was like, holy cow, this is what has helped make me sick, is this holding it together. I had all these, like, to use some imagery, I had all these boxes of experiences and emotions that went with those experiences in the warehouse because I'm just going to store those because I haven't got time to deal with it. Because something else has come up, like we were talking about with stress and work and all of that sort of thing. No, I've got to move on to the next thing. I haven't got time to deal with it. And a few weeks ago, I made that time to deal with it. And it was ugly. It was not pretty whatsoever. But oh my gosh, the freedom that came with that. And I have to say, over many, many years, I've tried many, many therapies, conventional and non-conventional. Nothing has worked as well for me as this immersion did. And
Mm.
yeah, now everything is, I know things are going to flow. I don't have worry about the future. I don't have concern about the future. Yeah, I'll look into it and go, yeah, okay. Do I worry about not making my flight, or do I worry about, the car and, all that sort of thing? No, I don't. No, I
Mm.
don't. Do I worry that, like, for instance, walking down the beach yesterday morning, there was a fellow there who was obviously not very comfortable with dogs, and it's an off-leash area, and I had my dogs off-leash, and one of my kelpies kind of went around him because first time she'd seen him, she went around him and he pointed his stick at her, this big long stick at her. And I was thinking, please don't, please don't. And I called her back and she came back. But I'm looking at that and going, gosh, once upon a time, I would have yelled at him and told him not to be so silly. It's an off-leash area, blah, 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 blah. He's making them worse. But now I look at it and I go, oh my gosh, what a place for him to be in, that he's so terrified of animals that he brings a stick. It's like, that's really, I really feel for him. It's like totally different mindsets.
Yeah. Michele, for those that resonate with your message, that relate to you, that are drawn to know more, to engage with you more, what's the best way for them to connect?
Social media. Send me a message on Facebook, connect with me on LinkedIn. Social media, as much as the keyboard warriors drive me nuts, I just scroll on by. But social media is the place to go. Also, my website, which is michelescherr.com.au, Michele with one L, Scherr, SCHERR. And you can contact me through there. So an email, a message through social media. Yeah, I'm open to any type of contact.
Yeah, perfect. And we'll drop that in the show reel notes as well. Michele, I'm really appreciative of your time, your insights, reflections, and really excited to discuss more with you around the epigenetics, as I'm sure other people are as well. Love what you're doing, love the journey that you've come through, and excited for your path moving forward. And to be able to kind of watch from the outside looking into, what that kind of is, what it entails for you and that further growth. So thank you for joining me today.
Oh, thank you, Steve. Like I said at the start, you've interviewed some absolute stars. I'm absolutely honoured to be part of this. So thank you for reaching out.
No, that's all right. And I look forward to keeping in contact.
Awesome. Thanks, Steve.
Thanks, Michele.